Hi, welcome to Super Awesome Film Club, episode 33. I am your host, Adelaide Blair, and tonight we will be talking about Ken Russell's The Devils. Our guests tonight are Ben Nason, one of my favorite film critics. Hi, Ben.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
And our other guest is our usual panelist, Io Blair-Freese, our movie philosopher. Hi, Io.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a synopsis of the movie for anybody who's never seen this, and I imagine it's quite a few people since it's never been released on DVD in the United States. I'm going to spoil the hell out of it. I don't think it ruins the movie to know what happens, but you know, if you're sensitive to spoilers, perhaps you don't want to be watching this show, and you should come back after you've seen it. Okay, so The Devils, 1971, directed by Ken Russell. This is a movie that was plagued after the fact by a lot of censorship, so there are varying different versions of it. We all three saw it together at the Grand Illusion Cinema in Seattle. We saw, what was it, 110 minutes?
Yes.
Did not contain the rape of Christ. Also, it didn't. I know what else it didn't have. It did not have the end scene with Sister Jean and what she did with that thigh bone, by the way. Anyway, it stars Vanessa Redgrave as Sister Jean, Oliver Reed as Father Grandier, and Gemma Jones as Madeline. I have a complicated story, and I'm just going to give it lightly. So it takes place in 17th century France in the city of Loudun. The king, I think it's Louis XIII, at this time France is not like a unified whole so much. It's a bunch of small parts that have a king, but they all have their own fortifications. So Cardinal Richelieu is trying to get the king to get rid of all these fortifications because he wants power. And he wants to, he says it's under the guise of wanting to prevent a Protestant uprising. But really, I think he just wants power. So he sends a group over to Loudun to tear down the fortifications. Now, the governor of Loudun has recently passed away, and the person in charge is Father Grandier, and he is both beloved and reviled. He's a strong, passionate man of Christ, and some of his passions he kind of gives free rein to. So he loves the ladies, and the ladies love him, and he's trying to balance, you know, being a good priest, as in, I think more he looks at being a good priest as being a good shepherd, and less about following rules about what is and isn't appropriate behavior. So the committee from Rome comes, and they're like, dude, we're going to tear these down. He's like, no, the king promised the former governor that he never would. So don't touch anything until you get a command from the king. So Cardinal Richelieu's people are pretty pissed about this, and there happens to be a nunnery in town, and it is head up by Sister Jean, who is a hunchback, and she is desperately in love with Father Grandier, even though she's never actually met him. And at a point, she confesses that she is taken over by lust, and that he visits her in her sleep, to command her to feel these feelings. Basically, she's just saying she has dreams about him, but the way she phrases it gives Richelieu's people the idea that it would be provident for them to say that he is a witch and is in league with Satan and is causing all the nuns to have all these impure feelings and to go batshit crazy. And so they bring in exorcist, Father Barre, who, by the way, looks like he's from a totally different movie. It's like he walked in from Tommy.
Oh yeah, he looks like Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth.
He does. His outfit is totally like the most bizarre thing. Anyway, Father Barre comes, and they tell the nuns, if you don't start acting batshit crazy and possessed, we're going to kill you. So the nuns go crazy. At this point, Father Grandier gets married in some kind of lay ceremony. It's not pertinent to the plot, but it's pertinent in his character development in that it shows his spiritual quest. He goes on trial for witchcraft and then has a horrible, horrible, horrible ending. Okay, I think that about narrows the plot down. Now, Io is a first-time viewer of this movie.
I am.
So what did you think?
I thought that this was a very well done movie. Hearing all of the controversy around the censorship of this film and the rating of this film, I didn't think that it was in any way overly crude. I don't know anything about the scenes that were cut out, but they don't sound like something I would want to watch with maybe my family. But from what was left into the 110-minute version, I thought it was pretty tastefully done, and I didn't think that there was ever any parts that were overdone or were too crude.
So yeah, that's something that I wanted to address with you specifically, because you and I tend to be on the feminist side of the spectrum, and you are more hardline than I am as far as gratuitous
sex and violence, especially when the two mix.
And this movie has a lot of nudity and some pretty graphic violence. And did you feel it was gratuitous, or were like pertinent to the story they were telling?
I thought that it was all very pertinent. I know that this is mostly based off of real events, and I thought that they didn't go so over dramatic or overboard that it took away from the realism of the story. Like, I felt like that may very possibly be something like the true events that the play that was written for this movie was based after. So I thought it was really tastefully done, which is a very high rating for me, considering that I hardly give anything I see in the cinema a pass as far as tastefulness and tact these days. I also thought it was a really interesting look on the way that people interpret religion. You can see very different kinds of Catholicism from Father Grandier, from Richelieu, Cardinal Richelieu and his group, and then also from Louis, from King Louis. So Grandier, he is a womanizer, and he sleeps with a lot of people, even though it's still seen as kind of frowned upon by the Catholic Church. And so he's kind of cherry-picking that. But overall, you're very sympathetic to his character, even though he is kind of a sleazy creep, because he's getting some unfair treatment from the cardinal and their cherry-picking of the Catholic religion, because they want to use the dogma in order to further their positions by, trying to get rid of this guy so that they can have a unified France by using religion as kind of the excuse for that. And then there's Louis, who is totally nuts. Like, he is definitely someone who just enjoys leisure. And I think it's very funny the way that he interacts with the cardinal. He comes to the town and he sees all of the women, acting like they're possessed by demons. And he says, "Oh, I've got this, magic thing in this box, and it's going to calm everybody down." And, the cardinal's friends do all their thing and exorcise the demon. Oh, the box is empty, and yet he doesn't stop them. Like, he's still enjoying the leisure and the play and the activity of all of the events that are going on. And I think that's a really interesting way to kind of put the Catholic religion into three different kinds of ways of practice. Mm-hmm. And in general, I just think, it was a very fun movie to watch. It was very long, and yet it didn't ever seem to get to a point where it was kind of boring. There's a lot that's going on, and it's a very fun watch.
Ben, what did you think? You've seen this before.
Yes, this is one of my favorite movies. Maybe top 10 even favorite movies. It was sold to me, when I say sold, as in, I guess I discovered it around the time that I discovered Jodorowsky and Holy Mountain and El Topo and those films, and it was kind of billed in that same vein of every few minutes something totally crazy is going to happen, and it doesn't matter what the movie's about. you're just going to be mesmerized by all this insanity that's taking place on screen. And so I finally, got a copy of the full 111-minute cut and was able to watch that. And I was surprised in many different ways. One, because it wasn't, that, I guess, what the fuck kind of movie that I was told it was going to be. That it wasn't as crazy and far out as, say, like Holy Mountain is, right? Like, there's not as much, like, insanity every 30 seconds or so taking place. It's very much more a subdued story that, hyperbolizes, excuse me, hyperbolizes, these things in a way to, make it dramatic and to make that drama important. And so that really surprised me. It was like, it wasn't the movie I was expecting it to be. It wasn't like, the acid trip freak out. However, I really connected with it because of all the religious aspects. I grew up in a religious environment, and so I learned at what I think was an early age just how the church and religion can be used as, a manipulative force. And so that movie, I guess, it connected with me in that way. Is like, here we're watching that exact thing happen, right? Is these people are using religion to enforce these other, ideas, their other personal agendas, that they had going on. And so I found a connection in that, and I really enjoyed that. Because of that aspect. But then I also love Oliver Reed, and he's just a pleasure to watch. And so that elevates the movie so much more for me. Is like, not only is this a really well-made movie that has this really poignant point, this irreverent thing to say about religion in general, but it also has this really great, actor in it, and it's really like firmly directed. Like, Ken Russell just does a fantastic job, I think. There are moments when the movie, shifts in tone from being like rather silly almost to then being extremely violent and dark and sadistic. And I really enjoy and appreciate the way that he handles the nuance in that shift of tone. Because, like, in the wrong hand, that could totally just, end up being something that would be too shifting, and then it would be off-putting, and it would, like, turn you away.
Or farcical.
Yeah, exactly. And this pulls you in. I mean, it's still there's still a farce to it, but not to that, like, incredible level. Like, I mean, there's the scene when Grandier, comes in on the woman who's being, cured of the plague, and she's got those jars on her with the bees, with the hornets in her wounds, and he just comes in and pulls that away, and then underneath her he discovers that she's laying on top of a stuffed alligator. And while I don't know what the exact medical or historical significance of putting her on top of a stuffed alligator would be, it just heightens that moment. And then to have him toss that out the window to only then later use it as defense when he gets attacked after leaving the house, it's a very good moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, continue on.
Oh no, that's it.
Okay, so I love this movie. I love the performances by Oliver Reed and Vanessa Redgrave. The direction is amazing. Yeah, because it could have been farcical, but it's funny, but it's not. You're laughing with it and not at it.
Exactly.
I love how the film treats both Father Grandier and Sister Jeanne with compassion. Sister Jeanne is used as a tool to destroy this man, but it makes it very clear that she and most of the other nuns have no vocation. They're there because they are unwanted and left over and have no dowries, and it focuses on her loneliness, and her focus on Grandier is more about the utter and complete loneliness that she's experiencing. And once she starts getting attention from the exorcist about, if she she does these things and has these hysterics and blames Grandier, she's got a different kind of power than she had when she was purely in the cloister. I really like the fact that Oliver Reed is a flawed hero. He is manipulative. He's self-justifying all of his behavior that maybe doesn't fit within the church. He's a sinner, and he's a sinner on a quest. He's deeply flawed, but he is pursuing a higher good in trying to protect his town. Like, he loves his city, and for all that he's pissed a lot of people off by, getting girls pregnant and shit, his focus is always his city first. Mm-hmm. And it's deeply moving to me, his journey, because it's not, you witness him lose, like he is utterly destroyed both physically and mentally, but he comes into his own as a spiritual being. And before we talk about that, I just want to interrupt. Derek Jarman did the sets for this, and so the print we saw was pretty good, but I have the BFI disc, which is I think a little bit cleaner as far as the coloration of the film goes. Those are some of the most beautiful sets I've ever seen. I mean, just the visuals of the outfits and the makeup and the whole thing, to me, is just astoundingly lovely. Okay, so let's return to the spirituality element for a minute. So I am raised Catholic and am now an atheist. Ben is raised Christian, is now an agnostic, and Io is my daughter, so I tried to raise her to be a good atheist, like following my own beliefs, although I've always believed that she should choose her own way through life. So let's talk about the spirituality of this movie, because I am deeply, deeply moved by the spiritual journey that Grandier goes on. And when they break him, it's just such a heart-rending moment for me, because even though I believe that there is no higher power, there are times when this film makes me want to experience that, because it is so heart-rending to me. Io, what do you think?
I had that moment. I had a moment even where I thought while we were sitting in the movie, like, but isn't God going to come save the day and, like, save him? I was like, wait a minute. This is a movie, and I don't believe in God. So, it does, like, he brings you along with him, and even though, I was raised a very, like, strict atheist. I don't believe that there's any right way to practice religion, but Grandier's way is definitely the right way to practice religion when it comes down to it. Like, he does use his position of power in the church to his advantage, but when you see him go through this transformation throughout the movie, you kind of come to understand that he is a true believer, and he really does think that he's doing the right thing by both God and his village.
Ben?
So yeah, you both said a couple things I wanted to address that I found interesting. First off, you said that I thought it was interesting. You said that that there's a moment when he breaks, because actually, when I say, I don't think he breaks at all, or at least that's the way I've seen it. Right? Is that?
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't emotionally break or spiritually break. He physically breaks.
Right, yes, okay, yes, yeah, totally. And that goes back then to what Io was just saying, is that he, I'm trying to, sorry. So
that's okay.
What's interesting is how Grandier and Richelieu, I'm sorry, how do you say it? Richelieu?
Richelieu.
Richelieu.
He's also the bad guy in Three Musketeers, FYI.
Right, yeah.
Good to know.
So, what I find interesting is how they both start in the same place, right? They are both using religion to manipulate for their own personal means. Richelieu is trying to use it to gain, to grab power, and he wants to grab power, like, broadly, right? Obviously over a country and, lots of people and lots of space. Where Grandier has more personal interests, sex. And he's manipulating religion at the beginning of the story in almost that same way that they then come to manipulate religion in order for his own personal gain. It's just that his personal gain is, is personal. It's for only himself, and is very selfish with that. Like we see, when he gets and impregnates the oh, I forget her name, but when he impregnates that one character and she tells him, right, like, because he's got no more interest in that, she's gonna now tie him down, and he can't be involved in that because he's a priest and he's not even supposed to be having sex with her to begin with. But he then uses his religion to justify to everyone else, and I think also to himself, why this is okay, why his behavior at being basically a Lothario is okay for him to do. And I think that through the pain and suffering that he goes through, he comes to understand what his spirituality really means, what it encompasses. And I think that's the big change that he goes through, is that he starts off from a place manipulating religion for his own gain, like these people who then use that against him. And he comes to an understanding, I think, at the end of what it really means to be religious, to really be spiritual, and to love God, right? Like he has to realize how then he's been using religion to manipulate others when it's now then done to him.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is the best movie ever made. I'm just going to put that out there. I know Io does not agree with me. And I don't
know about best movie ever made.
I believe it's the best movie ever made. It's my number one.
I've ever seen.
Okay, that's good. I mean, and I just, in all of its different components, it's batshit crazy, it's moving, it's political, it's, it makes atheists have spiritual thinking. Yeah, to me it is, I have never been moved this much. No movie has ever made me think this much. And I know that I'm going to end up watching it over and over again for the rest of my life to really define how I feel about this. Ben?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am not going to make any claim about best movie ever made for any movie, I think. But this is definitely, like I said, one of my favorite movies, perhaps in my top 10. And it becomes more so the more I watch it, the more I think about it, the more I talk about it. I read Richard Krause's book on the making of it, which I highly recommend anybody who's even slightly interested in the movie doing. It's a really quick, easy read, and it's very informative, and it's just really cool. It's very interesting to find out, not as much how the movie was made, but what happened to the movie after it was made, and just how ironic that all is, and the fact that this movie is being censored as being anti-religious when, as I think we've all kind of discussed here in one way or another, is how religious this movie really actually is, how spiritual it is. Yeah. And it's, a cautionary tale about people who, use that and manipulate it for their own gain, and how easy that is to do. And then, here we have, Warner Brothers, who then wants to now censor the story and keep it from, the public as much as they possibly can, it seems like.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming and for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we are continuing our mini-series on Ken Russell, and we will be discussing Tommy, which I do not like as much as I like this movie. I'm just going to put that out there.
Spoilers.
I would like to say goodbye to Leonard Nimoy.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Watch the skies, and we will see you in 2 weeks.